Hey everybody, how's it going? It's your boy Gamer Medic, aka Medic, aka Aaron, and today I just want to talk about how a lot of paramedics are feeling that paramedicine as a whole is just a wildly underappreciated and undervalued field of work. And I'm just going to share with you some of the reasons why I feel that is the case, and maybe some things that'll help further the discussion around this topic. I also just want to start the video by saying that I am a trained paramedic, previously working for a paramedic service in Ontario, Canada, before my wife and I moved here to New Zealand. And because of this, and paramedicine being my passion, I am biased towards paramedics and how much they should be appreciated and respected. But nonetheless, hopefully, I can give you some solid reasons as to why we should all feel this way, and despite my own personal bias. Subject is extremely close to my heart and one of my biggest passions, and as of late I feel that it's just become a flash in the pan story in the media that's forgotten just as quickly as it comes. And I feel like we should continue the conversation around paramedics and how helpful they are and how necessary they are. And I feel as well that, people in one breath will hail paramedics as heroes and lifesavers, but in another breath, they really don't know what paramedics do or what they're capable of. And I feel like the dichotomy of the two is one of the reasons why paramedics feel the way they do right now. Now, EMS, standing for Emergency Medical Services, is no doubt an important part of our healthcare system, right? The people work hard to deliver quality pre-hospital care, quality transportation, and providing quality healthcare to anyone who needs it, no matter who they are or where they are. They risk their well-being for the well-being of others and have a wealth of knowledge, both practical and theoretical, that helps them to make these split-second life-saving decisions. Now, these decisions are made in possibly uncontrolled, unsterile, unfamiliar environments, or in the back of a moving ambulance. And this circus act of important tasks are carried out by paramedics every second, 24/7, all around the world. And yet, I feel like this field is not nearly as recognized or as respected as it should be. Now, there's a few reasons why I believe this is the case, such as the inability to provide effective PR, just as partially due to PHIPAA, the lack of media exposure, also due to PHIPAA, which we'll talk about later on, and its relatively new state of being compared to other emergencies like emergency services like firefighting or policing, and its lack of financial incentive for governments to invest in this field beyond its current state. Now, if you're not a paramedic or know a paramedic, you might be asking yourself, well, Aaron, why should I worry? Why should I care if the government recognizes a solid EMS? Well, to that, I do have a few reasons. For one, it's become more and more evident that people have become less willing to intervene in emergency situations. Now, this could be due to a lack of education and training that adults have in first aid, or it could be, or coupled with, the ever so growing compensation culture that we've been cultivating in North America over the past few years. And I guess to be more precise, the fear of compensation culture. I'm just going to go a little bit more in depth with that first point there, just to point out how staggering the metrics are and to show you guys just how dire the situation would be without, or even with slightly less of an EMS system in place that most of us in the developed nations are just blessed with having. So in terms of public education, and after doing a rudimentary Google search and not much more than that, I found a statistic stating that approximately 5% of adults have the skills and confidence to provide first aid in emergencies. So while I'm here editing the video for tonight's release, hopefully, I just came across this article, and just as a trigger warning for anyone that is uncomfortable with child death or uncomfortable with death in general, just probably skip the next 20 seconds, I guess. But I found an article talking about a 12-year-old boy who ended up collapsing on a football field and dying after waiting 30 minutes without anyone doing CPR. And the reason why no one did CPR is because none of the bystanders knew CPR. And this just sadly is a tragic story. And, I feel for everyone involved. And it just goes to show how necessary it is just for the public to have this education and training. And one of the reasons why going forward, I'm going to be making videos, hopefully, to help educate you guys and make you more confident in performing first aid and being ready for these situations that do sadly occur. And we need to be ready to respond. Now, for those of you that don't like math or want a visual, that would be 1 in 20 people. Not only that, but this same study conducted by Critical Research and published by the Red Cross states that only 3 out of 10 people have the knowledge and feel confident enough to act if someone were to collapse and stop breathing. And staggeringly, only 2 out of 10 adults stated that they would know what to do if a baby were to start choking. Now, this just goes to show how medically uneducated the public is in general, which I just feel like it's just a sad state to be in general, and just how reliant we are as a society on being spoon-fed healthcare at the drop of a hat. Now, most people don't live inside of hospitals, so if an emergency were to happen, there are 2 options. Either someone close to them drives to the hospital, or they call an ambulance and they drive them to hospital. Now, I would like to say first and foremost that if you're experiencing a medical emergency, always call 911, get us, the paramedics, involved, let us do our thing, and let us take care of you and bring you to the hospital, of course. Now, I'm just pointing this out just to prove that we as a society rely on paramedics' expertise to bring hospital-like care to us wherever we are, and as paramedics, they do their best to provide and to deliver on that expectation. Now, hopefully understanding how just incredibly valuable and vital the paramedic services are, I'm just going to briefly touch on what the paramedic service crisis looks like from the inside. Now, before I go into that though, if you'd like a more in-depth look into the healthcare crisis from a paramedic perspective, I had the opportunity to interview one of my former colleagues at the service I used to work for back in Canada, and we touch on this issue more in depth. So if you want to go check that out, you can check that out at GamerMedic Interviews, and I'll probably link the video in the description. And with that shameless plug out of the way, let me just give you a quick recap of the issues we talked about in that interview. So paramedics are constantly dealing with overtime shifts, which are already 12 hours, to shifts like 13 or 14 hours. Now, these work times aren't completely unheard of, but when you're dealing with stress constantly throughout your shift, the emergent nature of the jobs, and paramedics are subjected to extreme stressors that can take time to properly process individually, and the constant lack of staff leads to remaining staff constantly working harder, which then leads to a positive feedback loop of less downtime and more burnout. This is hard not only for the individual medic to continuously provide the best service for every call, but it's also hard on the system itself, as the increased burnout, which has been further catalyzed but by, again, the disease that we shall not be naming, constant downstaffing, ridiculous wait times at hospitals, all of that just accumulates to a strained system that has been set up for failure. Sadly, though, it is an extremely difficult situation just to properly and politically share this from a union perspective, from a municipal, provincial government perspective. So I feel like this has been a very tough situation to handle on that side of things. And so as an individual, I'm able to speak up about it a bit more candidly. And so hopefully to give you guys a bit more information on what we're experiencing on the inside. I also feel sorry for, you working paramedics, but I also feel that painting paramedics in a blameless light also does a disservice, as I feel it's important to call out those working medics who just have an incredibly poor attitude, and this poor attitude contributes to poor PR outside of the job, as well as PR for getting younger generations into the profession. There's a classic answer to the question, students ask this all the time: if you were in paramedic school, what advice would you give yourself if you, knowing what you know now? And the classic answer that a lot of, burning out or burnt out medics, or just, people who know, the inside, they'll say, quit and go to nursing school. And I feel like, although it can be funny, it's also can be like demoralizing to the student. And it's usually said with someone who only partially means it as a joke, but also uses it as a way to project their discontent for the job. And for me personally, I absolutely adore being a paramedic. it has had some negative effects on just kind of like my personal health in terms of being able to sleep properly, being able to, eat healthily and work out regularly, as you can probably tell. But it is nothing that you can work around it. There is a possibility that, you know, someone who is much smarter than me and much more organized can work around it and live a healthy life while working as a paramedic. I feel for me, there's no other job I'd rather do. It is probably one of the most exciting, most fulfilling things that I've ever done in my life. And I can't see myself not doing it ever. And with all that under our belt, let's just go into two issues I see within paramedicine and its public perception. For number one, we're going to talk about PHIPAA. So PHIPAA stands for Personal Health Information Act. And what it does is that it basically helps to restrict who's legally able to see certain medical and health information about an individual. So in this case, in most cases, it's going to be the patient. And this is an extremely important piece of legislature that helps protect patients, but it also separates paramedics from other emergency services when it comes to PR, as we're not able to take pictures of what we deal with, what we're going through, our day to day, what we do, certain emergencies that we go to, because it's so personal and such a restricted space. Now, you can see, firefighters, for example, they'll have plast pictures of giant fires and them being heroic. Or police, you have police chases on the web, you have body cam footage, some of them not for the best, but you have all of these things and pictures and videos showing of both of these services being very heroic and showing the public how useful they are and what they're doing. But very rarely are you going to see, aside from TV shows, what paramedics are up to on a day-to-day basis. And so I just feel like that is a huge part of the public perception because everyone consumes media. And that leads us into number two, not really well, but we'll just say it does, and that paramedicine as a service is still a relatively new emergency service compared to firefighting and policing. Now, this is important in a few ways. For one, EMS is not even seen as valuable as fire from an insurance perspective. So I don't know where it is, how it's like where you're from, but in Ontario, you can't have an official town without a fire station. You can have it without police and you can have it without EMS, but heaven forbid you don't have a fire station. That plus the insurance adjustments for, getting quotes and stuff. It doesn't mention how close you are to an EMS base, but oh, heaven forbid you're more than, 100 meters away from a fire station or a fire hydrant. And I get it. It's important, but in my mind, what's more important, your things or your life? And I'm going off track. I'm going off base here because firefighting is definitely important. Firefighters deserve what they have, and some people might not agree, but I believe they deserve what they have. I just feel like paramedicine should also be viewed as an extremely vital part of society. And obviously, policing is just a whole thing. And for two, historically, EMS has had fewer rules in terms of public service than police, I guess we'll say. Let's compare them to police. So therefore, the funding and public awareness has gone down. Let me give you an example. So police, you have, your road service cops, that traffic infringement cops, you have your investigative cops, your mental health cops who focus primarily on mental health. And so all of these different sections of police all get dedicated budgets, which then dedicated training, dedicated police officers. And so the resources for that are absolutely insane. Again, I'm not saying that they don't deserve it 100%. I believe they do. But let's compare it to a paramedic, for example. Now, ever since this service has started and has become popularized and, starting to become its own, the scope of practice for your run-of-the-mill paramedic has grown and grown and grown exponentially. So now one paramedic who is just doing all 911 calls is now expected to do mental health. They're required for MVCs, so car crashes. They're required for elderly patients. They're required for end of life care now, at least in the service I'm going for, palliative care. And so this is something that I feel should be branched out to. Luckily, that is I'm going to mention that community paramedics is now becoming a thing. It is very, very new, but I feel like it should be widespread throughout the services, and we should be adding more different branches of paramedicine. But it's getting there, but it's not there yet, which is what I want to push for. And this is why, one of the reasons why I'm making this video, is that there's so many things that we as paramedics are able to do, and we just need that extra little push from and support from everyone to be as great as I can imagine us being. Now, this whole one paramedic being able to do so many things works for and against us. And the reason why it works against us is because it works, which is great for us, because that just shows that us as paramedics, we're doing a great job. For those of you guys that are doing what you're doing so much, and I appreciate you for it, and thank you for doing what you're doing. You guys are absolutely phenomenal, and just keep up the good work, guys. But that also, it doesn't work long term. It can only work short term, and we can only do so much as paramedics. And I feel like if you start specializing people, not only will people get a chance to do what they love even more within the field they love, but they'll also have a lessened work work on their plate, so to speak, and help with the day-to-day call volumes and increasing the quality of care that the patients are getting. So it's just, the budget for EMS is so low because of how generally fantastic paramedics are, I feel. Now, there are more aspects that lead to this feeling of being undervalued and underappreciated, but from my point of view, those are two of the most systemic and just hardest points to fix. That, hopefully after bringing to public attention, this will help bring more awareness to these issues and further a conversation between people, and keep paramedics in people's thoughts and in people's conversations. And once hopefully the public sees just how much paramedics do, that will be able to be seen and respected more, and not just seen as a quick ride to the hospital. Now, just as a quick sidebar, because I'm here and this is my chance to stand on my soapbox, I just want to mention a few things that also irk me, that can just further drive home the point of just how forgotten paramedics are. So my wife and I were at a bank in Ontario trying to get a joint bank account, and the lady there at the bank asked me what my job was. I said, "Oh, I'm a paramedic." And she's like, "Oh, okay." So she scrolls down through all the list of jobs available that you can click on, and paramedics just not even on there. Of course, you have your fire, you have your police, but paramedics not anywhere to be seen. And it's just small things like that. And it's so mind-boggling to me how frequently I come across that, where I sign up for something and it's not an option. Paramedics just aren't seen by companies as a job for some reason. And I really wish that changed. You know what? Screw it. BMO, Bank of Montreal, fix your thing. Put paramedics as a job, for Pete's sake. Like, I don't know how hard it is. You can have, there's so many. She was scrolling through all of them, and there's like so many wacky and out there jobs, and apparently paramedics is so foreign of a concept that you can't have it on your list of available jobs. I know it's so small, but it irks me that it's not even seen as a profession, or not even seen as a job. So please fix that. Please fix that. Thank you. Now, with that all being said, the question then becomes, what can we do about it? And sadly, on this question, I can't even say much, because honestly, I'm not sure. This is just such a deep problem, and the problem has just been so long standing that one, poor dream of a paramedic like myself just can't possibly come up with solutions off the dome. But, maybe I can at least further the conversation and help spread awareness about the importance of first aid, helping the public, you know, understand more so the full capabilities of paramedics and continue to speak about the issues and heroic deeds of paramedics. And hopefully that will help kind of bring more awareness to what we're capable of and what we're doing out there, and kind of give us more clout, I guess would be the word I can use, make myself sound cool. But also just to help people realize that we are here and we're important. And I feel like we should be appreciated as such. Not to sound vain or proud, but I feel like as a service and as a service to the public, I feel like we should be appreciated as important and not just disregarded and forgotten about. So if you're a paramedic, I urge you to do the same. Represent your profession well, speak about it, and share it with others, the amazing work that you do. Obviously, keeping in mind PHIPAA, not mentioning any personal health information. You know what you're doing, but speak about it more. Talk about the things that you're doing. Be proud of what you do. You do amazing work, guys, and be proud of what you do and share it with other people. Now, and if you're not a paramedic, just know that us, as well as the police and fire brothers and sisters, are just always out there to help you when you're in need, and hope that you in return, will support us. I hope that you guys learned a thing or two. If you have a positive experience with paramedics, please share that in the comment section down below. Only you guys can share your experiences with paramedics from a personal perspective. Obviously, like I said above, we can't share what we have done for you. It's on you guys to share what you have experienced with paramedics. So please share that in the comment section below. And if there's anything you'd like to know my thoughts on, please let me know in the comments as well. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, put that little bell on. And this isn't my main channel, so I'm not going to be spamming with notifications, I promise you. And it would really just help me out a ton. This does bring us to the end of the video, however, so I just want to say that I wish you all nothing but health and happiness. And until next time, this has been Gamer Medic Thoughts. Take it easy.